Welcome to this presentation all about brainstorming. I'm Justin Rempel. In this talk, we're going to discuss what brainstorming is, why we need to do it, and why it's so difficult. Then we're going to take a look at some helpful tips and strategies to get those ideas flowing. So when we're talking about brainstorming, we're talking about the act of generating ideas, making something out of nothing. We're talking about the moment when your teacher says, here's an assignment, and you ask, what's it supposed to be on? And the teacher says, I don't know, pick something. You've got a blank canvas to work with, and you have to come up with something yourself. And it's really, really difficult. Often coming up with some kind of an idea is the very first step in writing, whether it's for school or for just your own personal use. Coming up with ideas is much easier said than done. Ideas are really mysterious. No one really knows where they come from. They just sort of pop into being. It can be difficult to produce a good one on demand. That being said, there are ways that we can cultivate and develop the practice of brainstorming and get better at coming up with ideas when we need to. So why? What's the point? Why do we need to brainstorm at all? Brainstorming is actually a really useful skill. It's a practice in creativity. This is a skill that's not just helpful for school, it's helpful for life. And because it's a skill, it's something that we can practice and develop and get better and better at. So brainstorming can actually become easier and easier. It's like a muscle. If you work it, if you exercise it, you can get better at using it. Creativity helps us in all sorts of ways. It helps us to produce art, which helps us to express our unique selves. Creativity helps us to solve problems and overcome difficulties. Creativity helps us to put new things out into the world. Creativity helps us to grow and make progress. Creativity helps us to learn. It helps us to see things from a fresh perspective. So creativity is not just a school skill, it is a life skill. Creativity and coming up with ideas comes up a lot in school. You encounter it with many school assignments, and there's some tips and strategies that we can use when that happens. So the goal is to narrow your focus, to go through this process of elimination so that we are not just thinking about any possible option, but we start to narrow it down to just a few possible options. One of the most important first steps that you can take is to check the assignment criteria. Check with your teacher, check with the assignment description to see what the requirements are and what is up to you as choice. So for example, does the assignment description dictate length? Does it suggest some topics? Does it tell you a field or a category that your topic should be in? Just reading over what the assignment is supposed to be can help you to come up with an idea that's correct and on topic for the assignment. You really want to think about all the aspects of shaping your writing. So think about the purpose of the assignment. Why are you writing? Is it to make a point or to argue something? Is it to share a personal story? Defining the purpose of your writing might help you to come up with an idea for it. You also want to think about the audience. Who are you writing for? Is it for yourself? Is it for your friends? Is it for the whole world? Is it for your teacher? Defining your audience is going to help you to come up with ideas. You also want to think about the form that you're using. Are you writing a research paper? Are you writing a journal entry? Are you creating a poster or a slideshow presentation? The form that your writing is going to take might actually help you to come up with a topic. Topics that work in your mind and your imagination for one form might not work so well for another. And lastly, you want to think about the content. What is the writing supposed to be about? What is the actual writing supposed to contain? See how closely that's defined in the assignment. It might help you narrow things down and do some of the brainstorming work for you. It's important to remember that sometimes teachers provide a list of recommended topics. So often teachers will have a list, and the list will be of some topics you can use. You can pick something off of that list. Usually the teacher will say something like, you can go off the list if you'd like, but you have to get the topic approved by the teacher. Strategies. So here are some ways that we can come up with ideas if we're really getting stuck. Think about choosing a topic of high interest to you, something that you're very knowledgeable in, something that you have expertise in. It's easy to write about and communicate things when we like the topic and when we have a lot of knowledge about it. Another approach is to do exactly the opposite. It's to choose something completely new to you, something that you know nothing about, but that you're very curious about. Sometimes the freshness or the newness of that topic will actually get more creativity going than something that's old and familiar. Another strategy you can use is to come up with a list of options, write 3 things down, write 5 things, write a top 10, and then pick. You can pick at random. You can flip a coin or roll a dice. You can close your eyes and point, or you can practice being decisive, looking at your options and picking one, making a conscious decision. That's a good skill too. One good thing to practice is to practice defining your broad categories. What are the big categories that I could pick from? And then narrowing your focus. Okay, I'm supposed to write a paper. Do I want to write about something, science, history, or art? Well, I'm most interested in art. Okay, do I want to write about one of these 3 artists? Right away, as you're narrowing it down, it's becoming more and more focused. As you make more and more choices, you're doing the brainstorming work of choosing a topic. Start with broad categories, narrow it down. Of course, the broad categories have to be within the restrictions and limitations of the assignment. One good strategy is to stop trying to force an idea to happen. Take a break, do something else for a while, come back to it later. What should that something else be in between? Well, you could use a variety of approaches. You could rest or practice mindfulness. That's one of the best things to do. It's scientifically proven that when we give our mind time to rest and relax properly, it actually becomes more creative. You could spend that time doing something else, creating something else, put your brain in a creative space. Some people get ideas when they're very productive and they do important and necessary tasks. So you might want to spend that time doing errands or chores. Some people get very creative when they exercise. You might want to try walking, running, working out. Doing physical exertions and getting rid of physical energy can sometimes help to get the mind going. A good strategy for doing something else is to get outside, be in nature, take in some fresh air. It's healthy for you, and it's healthy not just for your body, but for your mind as well, and it might get some ideas going. It's a good idea to place yourself in a creative environment, an environment that produces ideas. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's also a good idea to use the resources that are available to you, and we'll talk about that as well. So when trying to come up with an idea, we want to put ourselves in spaces and places where ideas are likely to happen. How can we do that? Well, one thing we can do is take in and consume art that really stimulates our creativity and gets it going. Listening to music, watching a good movie or TV show, reading some good literature, getting out to an art museum or viewing an art gallery. Taking in creative expression might get some of our own going. Another thing you can do is pivot from trying to come up with an idea yourself to creating other art, especially in some kind of different medium. So that could be writing, painting, sculpting, crafting, knitting, sewing, composing music, composing poetry, whatever. The idea is that by creating something else, you might actually get ideas for your original project. One thing you can do is put yourself in a space that is restful and reflective. Less is more. Being in a peaceful, relaxed environment will help your mind get rest, and a rested mind is a creative mind. This means you might listen to calming music, you might take a nap, you might dim the lights, that sort of thing. A good environment to get out to is the great outdoors. Take in some fresh air, go for a walk. Being in nature is one of the healthiest places to be and one of the most creative places to be. Highly recommend. You might want to get in a social environment where you're around other people. This could be one other person, could be a group. Discuss with that person to get their input and their fresh perspective. Of course, you want to practice being creative yourself, not just getting ideas from other people. There are plenty of great tools and resources that you can use to come up with ideas. Search engines are actually great idea generators, right? Googling or searching something online might produce some results and get some ideas flowing. You can find random idea generators online where you hit a button and it spits out an idea for you. You can also find websites with lists of great ideas, so you have to write a research paper. There's plenty of websites that will provide you with top 10, 50, 100 research paper topics. You can also talk to peers or teachers, friends, trusted adults, other people. Those are resources for you as well. That being said, it's important to practice brainstorming independently. It's a good skill that you want to develop. That means knowing what tools are available, but it also means practicing using the tool of your own mind to come up with things. Sometimes we brainstorm and generate ideas in a group setting, a bunch of people working together. This has its pros and cons. Obviously, it's really great to have more minds working on the same problem because you're going to get more ideas and more perspectives. On the other hand, sometimes group brainstorming doesn't work well because you have conflicting personalities, you have different visions or directions. It's easier to get off track and go off on tangents. It's easier to run into potential conflict when people are thinking in different ways. Some important tips are to keep the environment judgment-free, especially in the initial phase when you're spitballing and you're trying to just generate a list of ideas. It's important to have clear guidelines and goals around how much time things should take, what your topic is, what you should be focusing on, and what you want the outcome to be.